But when I'm writing for me, it's more or less, it's my story.
Right.
You know, and I try to find the commonality in humanity, because we all go through ups and downs. I mean, you know, hey man.
Different things like that, like things you would never think of. You know what I mean?
People climbing through the sunlight.
Just like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And you're just going about your daily job, basically, and doing.
Yeah.
Richie Sambora didn't wake up one day and decide to burn bridges. By the time he finally spoke at 66, the silence had already lasted longer than most bands survive. What shocked people wasn't anger or bitterness. It was how calmly he explained it. No shouting, no dramatic blame. Just a quiet admission that the partnership the world thought was unbreakable had been cracking for years, long before the night he vanished in Calgary. Richie grew up in a small house in Woodbridge Township, New Jersey, where nothing came easy and nothing was wasted. His father worked long factory hours. His mother kept offices running. The routine was strict, Catholic, working class, and loud in the way only neighborhoods built on labor can be. Music slipped in early, not as a dream but as relief. Classical records played in the house, folk songs drifted through the rooms, but it was rock that made his chest feel different. When he was 6, he found his father's hidden jazz records, especially Wes Montgomery. He listened in secret, memorizing every note without knowing why it mattered. That thumb-picked warmth rewired his ears before he ever touched a guitar. By the time Kiss exploded across his television in the mid-70s, something inside him locked into place. The makeup, the fire, the noise, it wasn't just sound, it was permission. He begged for a guitar and practiced alone for hours every day, teaching himself through obsession rather than instruction. No teachers, no shortcuts, just stubborn repetition. At 14, he briefly dropped out of school to play with local punk bands, chasing stages that didn't care if you failed. The crowds were rough, the money was nothing, but the lesson stuck. Rock wasn't polite. It wasn't safe. It demanded commitment or it exposed you. His first paid gig came in a bar where fights broke out mid-solo. He kept playing anyway, terrified but frozen in place by instinct. That night taught him what live music really was. Chaos held together by rhythm. By his late teens, he was hustling harder than most adults, forming bands, running small ventures, learning the business side long before he ever saw success. Failure followed him closely. Bands collapsed, equipment broke, labels vanished with money. Each time he didn't quit, he adjusted. In the early 80s, he was still grinding when he auditioned for Kiss. For a moment, it felt like destiny. Then they rejected him for being too bluesy. Too much soul. It hurt, but it freed him. Instead of copying someone else's shadow, he leaned into his own sound. That choice changed everything one humid night in 1983, when he wandered into a small club after a show and saw John Bon Jovi on stage. When Richie jumped up and played, the room shifted. The chemistry was immediate. The next day, they were writing together in John's mother's house, building songs that would define a generation. From the outside, the partnership looked perfect. John had vision and drive. Richie brought melody, grit, and emotional weight. Together, they built an engine that didn't slow down. Albums came fast, tours came faster. The pressure never eased. Even in the early years, Richie was pushing himself past the limit. He collapsed on stage from exhaustion and finished the set anyway. Painkillers entered quietly, disguised as survival. Fame rewarded endurance, not balance. When Slippery When Wet exploded, the world locked Bon Jovi into a permanent upward climb. Richie co-wrote anthems that felt universal because they came from real struggle. Working class stories, fear, hope. That honesty connected globally, but it also trapped him. The machine didn't stop. Tours stacked on tours. Studio sessions blurred into nights without sleep. Success became obligation. His personal life paid the price. Marriage, fatherhood, and health all competed with the schedule. When his daughter Ava was born, he missed moments he could never reclaim. The guilt stayed. He hid addiction behind performance. Rehab came and went. Albums kept selling. The audience never saw the cost. By the time the band entered the 90s, cracks were no longer invisible. Creative disagreements grew sharper. Richie wanted blues, space, room to breathe. John wanted momentum. Both were right. Both were exhausted. Solo projects gave Richie temporary oxygen, but they also highlighted how confined he felt inside what he later called a corporation rather than a band. The real fracture arrived quietly in 2012. Richie returned expecting to write like he always had. Instead, he learned 30 songs had already been written without him. He was told not to worry about songwriting anymore. No argument, no explosion, just a subtle sidelining after 3 decades of shared creation. To Richie, it felt colder than any fight. The sound wasn't his. The process wasn't his. And the bond he thought was unbreakable suddenly felt conditional. Then came Calgary in 2013. Hours before a sold-out show, Richie disappeared. No message, no explanation. John stood alone in front of 20,000 people and asked them for support. Fans were confused. Rumors exploded. For years, the story was framed as abandonment. The truth was quieter and heavier. Richie had gone to his daughter. She needed him. And for the first time, he chose family without asking permission from the machine. The silence that followed hardened the divide. Weeks passed, then years. Apologies came later, publicly and privately. When the documentary finally showed Richie admitting he handled it wrong, people saw something rare. Accountability without theatrics. John was hurt. Richie understood why, but he didn't regret the decision. Because for him, the alternative was losing himself completely. Life after Bon Jovi wasn't louder. It was smaller. And that was the point. He married again. He built a partnership rooted in shared creativity rather than obligation. He wrote dozens of new songs without deadlines breathing down his neck. He toured differently, gave quietly, showed up for his daughter. The spotlight dimmed, but the pressure lifted. By 66, when Richie finally spoke openly, the story wasn't about betrayal. It was about endurance, about how relentless success can hollow people out. He didn't deny Bon Jovi's legacy. He helped build it. Over 100 million records don't exist without his fingerprints. But he admitted that after years of non-stop motion, he felt less like an artist and more like a replaceable part. Walking away cost him money, relevance, and certainty. It gave him time. Looking back, he didn't frame it as a feud. He framed it as survival. He said he wasn't an angel. He made mistakes. He vanished when he shouldn't have. But he chose peace over momentum, presence over applause. Rumors still swirl about reunions and returns. He doesn't close the door with anger. He closes it gently. Because the truth he finally shared isn't dramatic. It's human. Sometimes the bravest thing a musician can do isn't play louder. It's step away before the music stops meaning anything at all.